Hey guys, and welcome to another episode. Today in this video, I'm going to show you how to go from this to this. So behind me, I have a sandblaster that I picked up from Harbor Freight, and it cost me $100. It's inexpensive, it does the trick very well, and if you have a couple extra things to help you get this job done, the product that you get in the end is going to be really nice. So right here, I have a bracket that I want to sand up, clean, and get rid of all the rust from, and this is from a sway bar end link. So I have one of them that's still stock. It's a 20-year-old bracket, and I want to make this look new. And this is pretty much the final product. I removed all of the rust, I covered it in a coat of paint, and this is not going to rust out anymore. So today in this video, I'm going to show you how to get started with your sandblaster, how to set it up, what you need, how to take care of it, and everything. So let's get right into it. So everything that you see in this frame right now is what I use to get rid of rust. So on the right is what I used to use, and it's just a bench grinder with a grinding wheel and a wire wheel attached to it. It does the trick, it does a pretty good job at removing a little bit of rust, but if you have anything that's pretty complex, or a control arm, or any bracket, or whatever you want to use that is kind of intricate, you can't exactly use that to get this done. So that's why I picked up the sandblasting cabinet that you're seeing in the center of the screen. I picked it up from Harbor Freight. I spent $100 American on it, and it does the trick. There are some sandblasters that cost thousands of dollars, and those will do a much better job at being more efficient, but this will still get the exact same job done. And what we have on top is the inspection window, and that's where you get to see what you're doing inside. Below the inspection window, we have the two compartments for our hands, and that's how we control the sandblasting gun and whatever part that we want to sandblast. On the right of it, you can see there's two latches. That's what we use to open up the side door, where we put in our parts and our sandblasting media. On the left of it, you can see we have a vacuum hooked up to the side, and that's what we're using to remove any ambient dust that's created when we're sandblasting. So since we're basically throwing around sand inside the cabinet, any excess that's going to be in the air is going to make it so that you can't exactly see what you're doing. That's why we want to remove it, so that we can actually see exactly what we're getting rid of rust on. So since we're cleaning up this little bracket, we're going to toss this inside the sandblasting cabinet. So just lift up on each one of these levers to release it, and so we can get access to inside. We're just going to grab this piece, toss it in there, and close this up. We're going to lock these two pieces in, and like this, our cabinet is sealed. So looking inside the sandblasting cabinet, this is what we have. We have an air line on the left side, and that's hooked up to my compressor. That's where we're getting the air to supply our sandblasting gun with. So the sandblasting gun attaches up to the air line, and it sucks up the media from the siphon tube found on the right that goes underneath and brings up whatever media that you have inside the cabinet. So if we take a closer look at this, you can see that there's rust on it, it's corroded, and we're basically going to bring this right back to bare metal with this sandblasting gun. Before we get started though, we need to turn on the vacuum, hook this line up, and get some lights hooked up in here so we can actually see what we're doing. So what you're seeing inside the cabinet right now is the light from my little inspection light shined inside the box. So if I turn this off, you're gonna actually see pretty much nothing because it's so dark in there and there's no lights. So you see something like that. And obviously the camera can kind of adjust for it, but if you actually look through this, it's not the brightest environment. So that's why it's pretty handy to have a light or two so that you can turn the light on and actually see what you're doing on the inside of the box. You can use anything from a little light like this to a bigger light that's hooked up to the wall like this. Now the way that I like to use this is I'll actually turn each one of these lights face down on the box, like so. Turn each one of them on, and you get to see so much inside of here. Now this is very handy, especially when the glass gets all fogged up and hazed up from the media. So if you guys are interested in picking up any of the products like these lights right here, or even this little one, you guys can check the description box. I know that this right here is not the most amount of room to look into the box, but this is literally all that you need. I'm gonna put the camera up to it and show you that you can still see very easily given this little amount of space. So on the inside, you see all of this. So it's very well lit. We can hook up our sandblaster like so. And then this is ready to go. So we're just gonna hold this piece in one hand or put it down, whatever you guys wanna do. I like personally holding it like this, and then just getting the sandblasting gun and just spraying it like that. Now we can't go ahead and turn it on because if we do, all of this glass media that you see on the bottom is going to go all up in the air and you're barely going to be able to see your hands right in front of your face. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my hands out, I'm going to go and turn on the vacuum so it's sucking up all of that air, and I'm going to make sure that the intake that's found right up here is not blocked. So there's a cover that's there for the intake and the exhaust. The exhaust is right here by the vacuum, and you need both of those open. This one here is going to suck in clean air, and everything is going to be passed through the vacuum, and you're going to actually still be able to see your hands while you're blasting.
So take a look at this bracket now with all the rust, because in 2 seconds it's all going to be gone. So you can see how well and how efficient this sandblaster is actually removing all the rust. You can see how much nicer and cleaner this little bracket is. And we spent, what, 2 seconds cleaning that up. So I'm just going to continue and do this exact same process to the entire bracket, and it's going to remove all of the rust that's found on it. So the rust that I'm actually blasting off right now looks to be very corroded and very old, because the metal underneath looks pitted because of the amount of rust. So if you have a lot of rust, the metal is going to look very pitted, and well, this sandblaster will get it all done. If you use regular sandpaper or any other method to try to remove the rust, you will not be able to get it all. That's where this sandblaster comes in handy. If there's any spots that you have difficulty getting any piece of sandpaper to, you don't have to worry about that with the sandblaster. So this blaster, as long as you can get access to it like a straight shot and shoot it towards it, you can remove the rust from it. So you can do this to a metal bracket that's steel, you can do it to an aluminum bracket or an aluminum wheel that has paint on it, or whatever. This sandblaster can be used in many different ways. So the media that I have inside this blaster is glass. It's crushed glass. This is one of the most abrasive medias that you can get. If you're working with aluminum or a softer alloy or metal, you don't want to use something as strong and harsh as this, because instead of just removing the corrosion, you're going to be removing the corrosion on top of the metal. So the metal is going to be damaged and you're actually going to be warping it and changing the shape of it. So in this situation, see how I have this little metal bracket? If this was made out of aluminum, it would basically go right through it. So that's just something to notice. More often than not, you're going to be working with steel and rust, so it's not going to be a big deal. I bought a couple bags of this crushed glass, and this is what I've been using inside this sandblasting cabinet. It does a great job, and I am really happy with it. I want you guys to let me know what you think of this, and if you think this $100 is well worth it. Now, of course, you do need to have a couple other things like the vacuum and a couple other products beforehand, but the sandblaster itself cost me $100. If you think spending $100 on this cabinet is worth it, let me know in the comment section below.
So whenever you're done, you're going to be left with a product that looks just like this. So if you guys remember before, there was a ton of rust on this piece, and now this is literally just bare steel. So it's time to cover this up, prime it, paint it, and make it so that this is not going to rust out again. That's the point of sandblasting. You want to remove any rust, any corrosion that you have on your metal, and then make it so that it won't come back. I'm going to be using a product called Chassis Saver. So let's open up our box, let's open up this door, take this out, and I'll show you exactly that process. So next up comes protecting the metal. So you have it at this stage, you want to make it look nice and protect it like this. Well, there's many different ways that you can get that done. So the first and most common way that a lot of people might do is they'll go with a regular primer and a paint, cover it up, especially ones that say that it stops rust. That's a great option, it'll work, it'll do the trick, but it's not that durable, and it's also not chemical resistant. Now, something that I found, and a product that I love to use now, after I discovered it, I got it in black, I got it in silver, and I've been using it a lot on the underside of cars, primarily on this thing, because it's got a little bit of rust, and I like taking care of it. So what I'm gonna do is protect this piece of metal using this stuff called Chassis Saver. You can use it on any part of metal, aluminum, steel, whatever you wanna do, and it adheres very nicely. Actually, it adheres very nice, especially to very corroded metal. So if your metal that you have is very rusty, it's very pitted, you can paint directly over it, or if you wanna make it so that it's definitely not gonna come back, strip it down to metal like this, and then put a coat on there. Especially because the metal, once it gets rusty, it'll pit, and the paint will actually adhere and go into each one of those little crevices, and the paint is going to stick that much harder. This is a very durable paint. It takes a little bit to dry, so expect to not use whatever you're painting for a day. Other than that, this stuff is great. I'm going to be using a little foam brush, but you can also use a regular paintbrush. They'll both do the trick. The only thing that I noticed with the paintbrush is that you will notice the brush strokes, especially if you get the gloss black version of the chassis saver. You can get it in satin black, and you can also get this in silver. In silver, it's great, it works awesome, and I actually use this exact same product for my control arms. But it's pretty sweet. You just open this up, paint on a little bit of the product on there, leave it for a day, come back, and then you're ready to go to install it back on your car. Once you let the paint dry up, you should get a bracket that looks just like this. So it was bare metal, but now that you put the chassis saver on there, it's fully protected and good to go. So I'm gonna mount this back on my car along with my bigger sway bar. If you wanna see that video, stay tuned for the outro. I'll have a link for you directing you there. But what about taking care of this sandblaster? What kind of maintenance is there? The biggest thing that I notice is that you will eventually have to take out all of the media that's found on the bottom, especially if you're working on stuff that's extremely rusty, so that the rust chunks fall off and they go down into the media. So once you get to that point, it's eventually going to need to be drained. And on the bottom, there's like a little valve that you take off and everything comes out from there. But other than that, the biggest part of the sandblaster that I notice has to be changed occasionally is the glass, but not necessarily the glass. Let me show you what I'm talking about.
So whenever you're using a very abrasive media, like the glass media that I have in this case, over time, the glass on the back side actually has a little piece of plastic on the back, and that's protecting the glass from getting pitted. So occasionally, that piece of plastic, that little film, needs to be replaced every once in a while, because you can see that even by putting my hand on the back side, it's very difficult to see through it. So to take it off, you have to remove each one of the screws found on the outside perimeter of the black little frame, and the glass will be able to be removed.
It's a good idea to replace the plastic coating on the back side of it, because if you don't change it every once in a while, what you're going to essentially be looking through is this. Imagine looking at my videos with a quality like this. It's very hard to actually distinguish what you're doing because the plastic on the back side is so damaged and so beat with all the sandblast material. Now the material that you use is going to make a huge difference on how fast the plastic is going to get like this. So I recommend doing this whenever you're working with hard stuff. So I'm using glass abrasives on the inside of my sandblaster, and that's why this gets so bad so fast. If you're using something soft like soda or crushed walnuts, it's not going to penetrate this plastic and give it this horrible opaque finish to it. This might look pretty cool if you want a set of frosted windows for your house, but if you want something that'll actually be able to look through, this is not what you're looking for. So every once in a while, you're gonna want to take this plastic film off and replace it so that you can actually get that clarity back to what it used to be and make it look new again. So you can see that last time I didn't take off this piece of glass when I went to apply my new piece of plastic. And because of that, it didn't set nice, and some of the abrasives got stuck actually behind here while I was actually working on it. It didn't make a perfect seal around each one of the edges, and because of that, well, you get this kind of finish. It's not nice, and the piece of plastic is going to degrade faster that way. So what I recommend is taking the glass off every single time when you want to replace this piece, because it'll make it so that your glass is actually going to stay clear, you're not going to have anything going behind it, and you're going to have a very nice shot at putting the plastic on. With the old sheet removed, we're going to clean up this glass so that when we install our new piece of plastic over top, we're going to have perfect clarity and we're not going to have any of this dust that was on there from before. So what I'm going to use is a microfiber towel with some glass cleaner. This is a Meguiar's glass cleaner. Just gonna wipe it down and make sure I get every smudge and every little bit of dust off. You don't need to go to this extent, but what I'm gonna do is actually remove the little bit of glue residue that's still left on the glass from the outside part of the plastic. So it's just found on the outside perimeter of the glass. It's not gonna be a big deal, because we're pretty much gonna be covering this up with the new piece of plastic, and the new plastic piece that we're gonna be installing is pretty much going to do the exact same thing that it's done here. But I'm just gonna be going that extra step and clean up this extra residue. So once you have all that removed, go over the entire piece of glass with your microfiber and glass cleaner one more time so that it's perfectly clean. The next step after that is going to be installing our new piece of plastic film. So this is going to go on the back side of the glass, and we're just going to be installing this in the exact same way that we removed the old one. Just have to take off the little backing on each one of these strips And once you have all of them off, grab your glass cleaner and your microfiber, spray it on your towel, not on this piece of plastic, and just remove any fingerprints that you put on here while we were taking this off. Because once you put this down, there's no removing it until we're actually done with that piece of plastic. Working with half the glass at a time, you're gonna lay it down nice and smooth, push in the center of the film, not on the sides, once you have it all the way down, and then work on each one of the sides. And you really wanna ensure that each one of these little lines of adhesive around the outside perimeter are firmly pressed down. Because if they're not, any kind of media will actually go in like the sides of it and work its way into the inside, and it's really going to be distorting your clarity. So once you have this, we can go ahead and reinstall this back on our sandblaster. With the new piece of plastic on, you can see how much better you can see on the inside. Now the reason why there are these bubbles right now is because I used a glass cleaner and it was still kind of wet. So in a matter of half an hour, all these bubbles should go away and your clarity is going to be perfectly up there. Now that we have the inside of the glass cleaned up, I'm gonna use that same glass cleaner to clean up the outside because you can see it's a little bit dirty. So I'm gonna clean it up and get it so that looking through this glass is crystal clear. With that knowledge, I feel like you guys are pretty equipped to take on this challenge. If you guys want to pick up a sandblaster that will get you through any kind of personal stuff you need to do, whether it be a control arm, a bracket, or whatever it is, whatever has rust, if you can fit inside that cabinet, you can remove the rust in it. I didn't really mention my compressor that I have, but it's not the biggest thing in the world. Sandblasters, usually they require something that are about 60 to 80 gallons. Mine is only 20, but it still does the trick. Now what I need to do occasionally is just let it catch up and build more air up, only because it's a smaller compressor. But at the same time, it's a household one, it runs on 110 volts, and it does the trick for me. If you guys want to pick up any of the products that I used today, whether it be the media, whether it be the sandblaster, or anything else for that matter, check the description box. As always, guys, I have links for everything that I use down there. If you guys have any questions about the video, throw them down in the comment section underneath that, and I'd be more than happy to help. Again, guys, thanks for watching. I'll catch you in the next one. Peace.